Q1Q Pharmacy. Quality healthcare at affordable price.
I can't remember any more than that. If you know differently, then please let me know at RSL_studio, hashtag 24H series. I am really looking forward to that because the Yas Marina circuit races very, very well in multi-class racing. It'll be Phil Anson, who knows that circuit very well, has raced there many times himself, and Bruce Jones will be in the Radio Show Limited Global Broadcast Centre. Diana Binks brings glamour and fragrance to the pit lane.
And sunshine.
And sunshine, yeah, Scottish sunshine, that's right. And she'll have to put up with grumpy, smelly me in the pit lane as well. It's yin and yang. There's a balance to be had in everything. Hello to Yuki Garage, watching and working late from a frigid South Carolina, NASCAR country, or just south of NASCAR country, of course. Hello there. Thank you for tweeting in. Working appears to be doing livery on what is that? Is that a NSX there?
Yeah.
Right.
That would probably be for trading paints on iRacing, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an Acura NSX GT3.
Or Honda. We've seen this week, actually, the final team competing in major competition, stepping away from the NSX, one of the very much older GT3 cars. Gradient, of course, in the US. We knew they were going out. They've just had their new Ford Mustang GT3 delivered to them. Nick Damon has a much closer view of the damage to the back of that car collection Porsche than we had, and the Razoo More Than Racing number 914 is trying to get down the inside of the flatbed.
He could do it, to be honest, but they've kind of he just turned it off. So basically, if you want to know what a shorter version of a 911 GT3 looks like, they've reduced the rear length by about 4 or 5 inches, mainly by smacking up the exhaust pipes and really crushing it. There's a huge amount of cosmetic damage. They've done some damage to the mounting frames as well there. This is what's probably known as very expensive. Rest of the car, looking around the front, that's absolutely fine. I think it stood at the dive plane, so there's no problem with the front of the car. It's absolutely just reversed into that situation, spun or tipped and then backed in, and I'm pretty certain that they won't be able to get that car back out again in time for the end of the race, and they may not even want to. But yeah, so I don't think it's anything structural. I don't think it's done either bit to the suspension. Obviously, the advantage of going in, if you're going in at the back of a Porsche 911, you don't do any of the radiators either. It doesn't help if the engine mounts or the exhaust actually is really key. So that even if that was to come back, you want that, because if you don't get the back pressure right, the engine doesn't run. In Porsche terms, then, it's not quite Cayman's the 911, but it's certainly a Kurzheck rather than a Langheck. My guess is it's not approved used at the moment. No, I think it's got many of the 175 checks still need to be done. That just sits there going, that's annoying and expensive. But for example, if this team were running, I don't know if they are, but if this team were running next weekend at Abu Dhabi with this car, then I'm sure, apart from the massive check you've got to write.
Hello to Stephen Raab in Germany, kicking off the 2025 season. Would love to come there and watch the race in person someday. Do it. We've been saying this all through the race, and Khan is on the Twitter as well. What a great way to spend the last weekend of the holidays before going back to work. I'm in New Zealand. Great coverage. It's been epic. Phil Anson is back. And a word for the marshals and the track services and recovery team here at Dubai Autodrome. It's been one of the big success stories in this region, actually, getting volunteers from here who are either indigenous or who live here to come and be part of motor racing, even if they're not driving or entering cars, much the same as it would happen in Europe. Not everybody can go touring car racing or GT racing. That has been a huge success story in a relatively short time here.
Indeed it has, John. the Dubai Autodrome and EMSO, the motorsports governing body here in the UAE, have done an awesome job. Obviously, we also have Formula One 100 kilometres down the road, and the training of marshals in this region and our recovery teams and all of the things that go along with any motorsport event has been sublime. And don't forget, these guys have been out on post since well before we started the race at 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon, and they have done a sublime job of recovering cars, but waving the flags, which is the most important things to do. Oh, we've got a big spin for the 111. The 111 has got a flat left rear tyre. That was wow. He held it all together. But that's the IRC second in the GTX category, making it Grant Donaldson at the wheel of that car. He's going to have to be careful that that tyre doesn't start to flail and start ripping the bodywork off. That happened in the 2-3 complex and on the exit of 4, and he's got about 4 kilometres to go to get that car back to the pits. He may take the cut through at the club link and try and get that car back. They will lose a lap if they do that, but he could lose more than a lap if that tyre comes off of that rim and that car grounds itself out. Welcome back to the Global Broadcast Centre, Johnny Palmer. It's not the welcome you wanted back to see the 111 like that.
Certainly not, but this level of excitement has seemed to follow me throughout the race, so I'm maybe not as surprised somehow. The bodywork is starting to be torn away from that car, and I appreciate that Donaldson trying to get the car back as quickly as possible. A good shout, which he seems to be adhering to, in that you can shorten the lap around here. But now, with that side of the car obscured from my vision, it's getting steadily worse because the tyre's starting to tear up the rear left corner of that car.
And he didn't take the cut through at the club link either, so he's going to have to do the full he's probably got 3.5 kilometres to go now, and he's got to navigate that car through some traffic and try and stay off the racing line. He'll be shredding some Michelin rubber as that tyre wears away. Let's have a look at this again. And it looks like, oh, the tyre's deflated. The tyre has deflated as he's come around turn 1, and it's really good work from the Porsche behind him to avoid the spinning 111. And now he's got the job to do of keeping that bodywork intact as he makes his way. And you can see that tyre now flailing as he makes his way around turn 10, heading up the hill to turn 11. There's a large runoff area on driver's right there. He'll be able to stay there and get up the hill. He's got the car right off the circuit at the moment, over close to the wall. Is he going to pull it up there? That's what I'm thinking. Wow.
He's made it this far, so he's obviously desperate to try and get the car back as quickly as possible, and the damage done to that rear fender is not going to get any better. I think
I've got him stopped at turn 11. I thought he was pulling right off the circuit there, and I think I've got him stopped down at 11. The wall is in the way. I actually can't see it. And he is in sector 3, so maybe the timing hasn't got him quite where he is.
Still moving.
Yeah, he is moving down from turn 12 now. And he can stay on the inside. He's going to have to cross the track at some stage to get to where the pits are.
There's the gap. So, yeah, has done that now. That will mean, well, he's crossed the track in one direction. They're still giving him the inside line for the hairpin bend at turn 14, but then he's going to have to cross again.
Yeah.
Find the gap in the traffic.
With only one wheel accelerating on the rear of that IRC car. It's just coming down to turn 14 now. He should turn up around turn 14. He's not on the track. He's actually on the overrun before the apex. And now comes the difficult part for him to try and get across the circuit. He's got to keep his eye on that right-hand mirror to find out who's coming up. After this Porsche, it looks like he's clear. He can make it. He's already done it. He's made his way across the circuit safely. The Porsche takes his normal racing line, and now he's got a clean run down into pit lane. He's just got to try and stop that tyre from flailing too much and damaging the bodywork on that beautiful IRC. He's in the pit entry, so he's making his way down the lane. Currently second in the GTX category. We saw, John and PMAC were on at the 710, leading the category. The Leipert Lamborghini and is stalled up at turn 12, and we know that car has had difficulty starting, and that got towed back on a rope as well. So back into the pits and back out again, and he's almost into the speed zone, which he won't exceed because he's now really looking after that left rear to try and make sure that it doesn't do too much more damage, but it just looked like a puncher.
I actually think because this is a space frame car with the skin of the car sort of over the top of it,
silhouette,
a little bit of a flex to the rear fender.
It doesn't look too damaged. It will be the inside of the guard that I'm worried about.
It's moved with the tyre though, so rather than it being a solidly bodyworked car, I was fearful that it was just going to shark bite its way through there, but it's still relatively intact, Joe Bradley.
Yeah, great job. Absolutely great job. I mean, the rear wheel arch on the left-hand side is already tank taped on there to stop that flailing around, and that's from an earlier incident. The tyres come off, absolutely destroyed. Obviously, it's had a full lap whilst without air in, so it's just sort of destroyed itself. So what the team are doing now, we've got the few hammers out here. We're bashing. It's aluminium sheets on the inside of the sill that runs along the side of the car that extends to the wheel arch. That's just deformed a little bit. That's been bashed into place quite simply because it's aluminium sheet, and that's a doddle. The inside of it's not very far from the exhaust, the inside of this wheel. The inner wheel arch liner is, I'm not sure if it's supposed to have one. It hasn't got anything. You can see straight through to the tube frame chassis, the suspension, where it's mounted, and that exhaust. A bit of tank tape going on the rear bumper element, bit of bashing of aluminium plate out of the way, and I think we're ready to apply the wheel. The wheel goes on now, and the wheel is not touching anything, certainly anything with a sharp edge. So that shouldn't be a problem. Wheel on now. And they only ever brought one wheel and tyre out. They weren't intending on putting 4 on. A little bit of damage on the sill at the side. I'm not sure whether that was caused with this deflation or an earlier bit of damage. And he's already fired up off the jacks, and away he goes. So yeah, a bit unfortunate there, but I really am a fan of those cars.
Thank you very much, Joe. Grant Donaldson at the wheel, stays at the wheel. Will he jump into pit lane and take some fuel? We'll keep an eye on that. They've about 65 laps ahead of the Vortex, so no risk for that puncher of losing second place in the GTX category. Our race leaders, even after that stall up at turn 12, tack us at the wheel of the Leipert Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo, about 20 laps ahead of the IRC. Okay.
And breathe.
Oh, hello.
Yes, there was so much happening there, just at the point where we were doing a little change around
dance
in our box, which we've been doing either at 4-hour or the 2-hour step marker, just to make sure that everyone gets their designated time. And the queue for the commentary box was out the door for a while to make sure that we could do the rotation correctly. But these things tend to happen at the most inappropriate of times, not least for the IRC gang, in fairness. They've been up against it for much of this race in that relatively new car, the 111. Starter motor issues have plagued them for much of this race. But amazingly, yes, that bodywork stays intact on the rear left corner, and it's just the tyre that needed to be replaced. So Ben Tuck leads in the treble 7 Al Manar Racing by Team WRT BMW, from a couple of Porsches of Thomas Preining and Luke Hartog for Pure Racing and Dynamic GT, respectively. 5.34 laps completed for the race leader, 5.33 currently for Thomas Preining, 5.32 for Hartog, and then it is Alexander Smoljar in the SMP Racing Mercedes running in 4th position. So BMW, Mercedes and Porsche all represented in the top 5 places.
When we left you at 8:30 to hand over, the top 3 are the top 3.
Yes.
Okay, they hadn't they've changed positions in the 2 hours we've been away, but they're back 77.92.24. It's the number 7 that's creeped up there, and that's the Mercedes of SMP Racing, Alexander Smolar, and he's just got he's 40 seconds ahead of the 991. That is a BMW, not a 992 Cup car, of Paradigm Competition. Ahmed Al Athi at the wheel of that, leading the GT3 AM category. And leading the Pro-Am category is 6th place Victor Shaitar in the Winwood Racing Mercedes AMG. So the top 6 still battling it out. And we're just waiting for Ben Tuck has a 1:32 lead over Thomas Preining at the moment. Tyre lap, Ben's got 1 lap over Thomas in the tyre age, 7 versus 8. But Thomas Preining, as John was describing, has a 4-second penalty to serve, and that was issued at around about 10:10. So he's got 2 hours to serve that penalty. There isn't a dispensation for under a certain amount of seconds. It will just be added to